But he said they don't use mortgages. And I said, let me guess, you pay cash for everything. He said, no, we still use other people's money. It's leverage, arbitrage. Why not? We still use other people's money, but we're not going to use an archaic, inefficient system that is a mortgage.
Traders, friends and family, legends and legendettes from around the entire world, welcome to 2023. If you're watching this in the future of 2023, congratulations. You're time traveling for your brain and for your knowledge. I'm here with one of my best friends and an incredible business entrepreneur, an amazing man when it comes to mortgages, interest rates, but most specifically, how to replace your mortgage and specifically how to pay off your home and be mortgage-free and debt-free in 5 to 7 years. This man is a husband. He's a father. He's a hunter. He's a hybrid athlete. And he's just an incredible man. We're going to learn so much today about money, rates, HELOCs. Michael Lush, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you, buddy?
Doing solid.
Digging this shirt. At least we got similar colors.
Yeah. You like my chain?
Flashy. Yeah.
I've decided to look like an imbecile most of the year. That's kind of one of my goals. So I think I'm doing it.
I nailed last year, by the way.
Yes. Well, man, I'm so happy that you're here, especially in such a wild and turbulent time with interest rates and with things that are happening and changing. I'm really thrilled to get your experience and your perspective. The good news is I'm not going to have to do a huge background on Michael because I will add a link below that you guys can watch on the YouTube channel to get more background and experience when we had our discussion years ago. And that was actually became one of the highest rated videos that I have and interviews because the material is so impactful and interesting. So Lush, quick high level, what is it that you specialize in?
So I was a 17-year mortgage vet, and I had a buddy of mine that actually, well, I call him a buddy. He was an associate of mine, more of a mentor, that shared with me. He owned a hedge fund. At the time, he was worth several $100 million. Now he's a billionaire, still owns a hedge fund. And he was actually providing capital for a mortgage firm after the meltdown. So, I started off right out of college, first gig in the mortgage business, did good for 5 or 6 years, and then you hit the meltdown. And so he pledged $25 million to help us resurrect, and he was the one that owned the hedge fund. But I took an opportunity when he came in to kind of mentor me because I wanted to be involved in his sphere of influence, right? And he kind of denied me at first because he said that what you do with mortgages is peddling financial crack to middle America. And he said, you're actually the dope dealer. Now, middle America, because the poor can't afford them. So think about it. When poor go to try to get qualified for a mortgage, they don't. They don't have the income. They can't qualify. And the rich don't use them. And that's where it really, kind of bothered me. It's like the rich doesn't use them. That was why I wanted to break in his sphere of influence, because I wanted to get applications from his rich friends. Because if you got a big mortgage, you got big commissions. Big commissions mean big paychecks. And also he gets his money back faster. But he said they don't use mortgages. And I said, let me guess, you pay cash for everything. He said, no, we still use other people's money. It's leverage, arbitrage. Why not? We still use other people's money, but we're not going to use an archaic, inefficient system that is a mortgage. And let me back up a little bit. For those that don't know, mortgage is actually Old French for death pledge. Mort, which is a form of mortality, and engage, which is a contract or a pledge. It breaks down to mean death contract or a death pledge. And that's what 99% of Americans are signing up for. And I was one of the catalysts of it. I'm responsible for thousands of mortgage applications and closings, whether I was a loan officer or a senior executive for multiple different mortgage firms throughout my 17-year tenure. But when he hit me with that, obviously being called a dope dealer and you're peddling financial crack to middle America, it doesn't sit right and it doesn't feel well. So I set out on a journey. It took me about a year and a half. Actually, Matt Workman, who's a good friend of mine, it was the first person I called and said, this is what he just explained to me, that he uses other people's money, and specifically he's using lines of credit, whether it's a home equity line of credit or a business line of credit or a personal line of credit. He explained that the efficiencies of a line of credit is far more superior than that of a closed-end installment loan. So we spent a year and a half with a CPA and actuary trying to honestly disprove it, because I thought, all right, if I'm smart enough to disprove this, now I've really earned his business and his respect. Yeah. But the more we went down that rabbit hole, the more we proved him right. And it was in 2012 that I decided to jump headfirst into this, which again was another moment where I'm like, okay, I myself am not consuming a mortgage, but yet these people that are calling me to get a mortgage, and I'm not even telling them about what I'm personally doing. So I felt like a fraud and a fake, and I was. So I jumped headfirst and convinced my wife we're going to refinance our mortgage and we're going to get a home equity line of credit on the entirety of our home. So replace your mortgage. And we can get into what's the difference between a first lien and second lien position, home equity line of credit later. So we did that. Fast forward 3.5 years later, we actually paid off our house. Now, I'll be honest, I wasn't making average income in the mortgage industry. I was good at my job. I wasn't the best, but I was good. So I was making good income, and we were also on a budget because I had lost everything in 2008. So I didn't want 2008 to happen again. So we were on a budget, and I was making good money. So, but I was also liquid. So 24/7, money could move in and out of my home equity line of credit freely. And if there was an opportunity or a life moment, I was liquid to tackle either event. And it was in 2014 that a marketing mentor of mine said, you need to build a business around that. He said, come down to Florida. We're going to show you how to build a course and whatnot. The rest is history. I mean, within 60 days of building a course and really telling the truth, I told my wife, I said, this is what I'm doing 100% of my time. It's a leap of faith. I don't know what the longevity of this is. I don't know if people are going to continue to listen to it or ignore me, because at the time it seemed outlandish. Now, not so much. It's becoming, I would definitely not call this mainstream, but more people are definitely catching on. When you have rise of interest rates and inflation, people are flocking to alternatives to figure out a better and more efficient way to finance their home. And so they're now stumbling upon. So believe it or not, the rise of interest rates has actually helped our business get our message out more effectively. But I told her, I said, I'm going to take a leap of faith because I can't continue to offer these people mortgages when me as the expert would no longer consume one. And ironically, I won't divulge any names. We've got quite a few mortgage professionals that are clients of ours, and they still got mortgages. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why you and I, among many other reasons, connect so well, is because we offer and have delved in decades of information and research on a product and a marketplace that is massive, but it's so non-understood.
Yeah.
So for me, specifically stocks, options, Forex, crypto, active trading, and with you being the specialist of really liquid income, liquid flexibility, and capital, right? Mm-hmm. Because everyone gets a mortgage, but they shouldn't. And it's, or they should at least know the difference between and what they should or should not do. They should know the numbers. And that's what I love about you, man. Your course, your program, your product, it's extremely valuable. Very, very useful. Everyone should know exactly how it works, even if they don't take advantage of it for whatever particular dumb reason they would choose to do that. They should at least know how it works.
Right. Yeah, you should at least have, an alternative. And that's why, I have an issue with those financial entertainers like Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman, because they're saying this is the only way to do this. This is the only way to be debt-free. And I'm not a big advocate of being debt-free. Now, I've obviously found a very efficient way that if you want to be debt-free, I haven't found a more efficient way to be debt-free than what we've come up with. I'm a big fan of leveraging debt and having access to my capital for day trading or real estate or insurance, all these other things. But I'm not a believer that there's only one way to do things. And that's really what they're peddling is you got to eat rice and beans and have gazelle-like mentality. And you just got to suck it up for the next 3 or 4 years and not have a life. Well, I got kids. I've got a wife. I don't want to suck it up and not take vacations and then I walk across the street and get hit by a bus. No, thank you. I'm not signing up for that. But if I can maintain my lifestyle but still accomplish the same goal, I'm good with that. And that's what a home equity line of credit allows folks to do.
So walk us through how this works.
Yeah.
From a standpoint of, I'm going to go down the route that I am 35-year-old. I have a job that pays me $120,000 a year, and I want to go get a mortgage. I want to buy a house. Start there. What does this look like?
Can I first start with a history lesson on how the modern day mortgage came to be? Because I think that gives context to why that's no longer the answer for some people. You know, you and I have a similar friend, Chris Payne, and I love his analogy on this, is that, you know, our strategy is like yoga pants. Everybody can wear them, but not everybody should. You know, because it's not a one size fits all. With our strategy, you got to be cash flow positive, meaning you make more money than you spend. And unfortunately, most Americans, that is not the case. They're living paycheck to paycheck. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck, a mortgage isn't going to work for you. Neither is our strategy. You got to have a margin between what's coming in and going out. But let's go back to prior to 1913. Prior to 1913, the mortgage was an open-end instrument. Money could move in and out freely. So let's say you're a farmer and you've got a $200,000 farm and you owe $100,000 and you need $10,000 for farm equipment. You could walk down to the bank the same day and say, hey, I need $10,000. You've got the deed to this farm. You know it's worth $200,000. They're like, no problem. Here's $10,000. They changed the balance. It's $110,000 now instead of $100,000. You sell some crops. You got $20,000. You deposit into your mortgage. Now you owe $90,000. Right? That's how liquid it was back then. And obviously you'd have to, you know, walk to the bank or horse ride to the bank or whatever it was. But that's how liquid it was. So Americans were actually storing a lot of their cash in a mortgage. 1913, that all changed. Can you guess what happened in 1913 that really changed not only mortgage lending, but banking system forever in this country?
Tell me.
The Federal Reserve, which is neither federal nor is it a reserve. So the Federal Reserve is a backstop to banks, and it gives them the ability to execute a very simple magic trick, and it's called fractional reserve lending. So fractional reserve lending is every dollar you put in a bank account, they have $10 to lend out. If you put 10 in, they got 100. If you put 100 in, 1,000. You put 100,000 in, they have 1,000,000. So Jeremy, think of it this way. You're a day trader, so technically you could do this. But if I were to give you $1 and you snap your fingers and turn it into 10, that's a pretty cool magic trick. So I'm excluding day trading because we know you have that ability. But outside of that, that's a pretty cool magic trick, right? So the banks are like, holy crap, this is so powerful and so profitable. We need more dollar bills. So how are we going to get more dollar bills? So the banks got together and created the modern day mortgage. So people think that the mortgage that we consume today is the way it's always been. It's not. It's a modern day mortgage. So they made the mortgage a closed-end product as opposed to an open-end product, meaning money can move in freely, but it's trapped. It cannot come out freely. So think about it. You got $10,000, the scenario you were talking about, say you got $10,000, $300,000 mortgage. You put $10,000 in, like, yeah, I'm going to deposit all my income into the mortgage. What happens when it's time to pay bills, utilities, groceries, vacation? It's stuck. It's trapped. The only way to access it is one of two ways. One, a very expensive refinance, which could start the amortization schedule all over again, and thousands of dollars in closing costs and title fees and underwriter fees and appraisal fees, you name it. Or two, you sell the house. Those are the only two ways that you can access your equity in the mortgage environment, right?
The only two.
It's only two. Only two. You sell or refinance. In the mortgage environment is the only way to access your equity. So think about it from a consumer standpoint. If my money is trapped when I put it in there, now I'm going to segregate my income. And I'm only going to put some towards my mortgage, and I have to leave another portion left behind for those bills, gas, groceries, eating out, vacation, etc., right? That's exactly what the banks wanted to happen. So you think that the 30-year modern-day mortgage was all about extending the time frame, which if you extend the time frame, that means the more interest you pay. That wasn't their primary goal. The primary goal was to separate you from your cash. And that's the debt tool that they use to do that is the modern-day 30-year mortgage. So all that money that you were putting off to the side, you weren't putting it under the mattress or in a safe. You were putting it in the welcoming hands of the banks. Wow. Where they grow core deposits, which means they can lend out more. And you know, I sit on the board of banks. I have a JV with banks, and I help banks structure equity products that are both consumer-friendly and bank-friendly. Every meeting, that's the number one topic. How do we grow core deposits?
Yeah, it is. And just to make a quick distinction, you said the 30-year mortgage, but even if you get another mortgage, it's still the same. It's the same as a 15-year, 10-year, 20-year.
Yeah, it's an installment loan. It's a closed-end product. Okay. And, you know, the only thing that would compete with what we're talking about today on only the time frame level is a 5-year mortgage. They're not readily available. No, that's the only thing on a time frame. But even if you had a 5-year mortgage and you could afford the payments on a 5-year mortgage, it's still not liquid. So you're still not going to put 100% of your income towards it, and you wouldn't be able to do it in 5 years. You still have to budget. So back to your example, average Joe, 10 grand a month. With the home equity line of credit, you're not only replacing your mortgage with the home equity line of credit, you're also replacing your relationship with the bank. So for every dollar you're putting into a checking and savings account, you've created another liability. The more money you have in a checking or savings account, the more of a liability you have. So here's why. What is inflation? It's north of 8%. Well, actually, it's probably a little less than that now. I don't think they came out with the new numbers, but 8% as of the recording of this video. But what is the bank giving you in return for those dollars that you deposited in your checking account? On average, 0.24%. That is a monumental negative rate of return. I know that 0.24 to 5% is a negative 3,600% rate of return. In my head, I can't do the math of how much you're actually losing on your money by depositing it into a checking and savings account. So your money is actually eroding. I'll give another example. Jeremy, I give you $300,000. You put it in a tin can. You bury it in the backyard. 30 years from now, what do you think the value of that tin can is?
Well, the tin can or the money inside of it?
The money inside of it, yeah.
It would be less, most likely. A lot
definitely
less.
120 grand. Because of inflation. Now, that was with average inflation of 3.3%. We don't have average inflation anymore. So that number could be $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. So that $300,000 is eroding in value because it's not awake in doing something for you. So the checking and savings account is a liability. But since we know that a home equity line of credit is money can move in and out freely, right? If you have a credit card, you can use your credit card anywhere and anytime you want. Well, if you pay it off, you can still use it anytime, anywhere you want. But a home equity line of credit, exact same thing. Money moves in and out freely. So why use banks and checking and savings accounts when you could just deposit your money into the home equity line of credit? Because it's readily and freely accessible to you anytime you need it. And while it's there, it's reducing the balance, which reduces the rate, which actually gives you a rate of return on cost of money. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And here's a question that I get a lot, and if I'm skipping ahead too much, let me know. But the individuals that I explain this to, because this is a core belief now in my soul. When I talk to people about money, this is a product that comes up, all thanks to you, by the way. And also, by the way, team, vice versa, Michael, and I work on his team, teaching his team how to trade active markets liquidly. So him and I, again, we understand this whole process very, very well of how to move money, how to be liquid, how to make it grow. But that being said, I have found that people do not know what to ask for when they go to a bank. When they go to a bank and they say, hey, I don't want a mortgage, I want a HELOC, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Yes. I'll put it bluntly. Bankers are stupid. So worse, loan officers are actually intelligent. And I'm not being biased because I was a loan officer, but they are specialists, right? They specialize in loans. You go to a bank, what does a banker specialize in? Nothing. They're generalists. They specialize in checking accounts, savings accounts. Oh, you want a home equity line of credit over here? You want a CD over here? Oh, okay. You need to, set up some type of insurance. All they are is just a middle person, right? So they're generalists. So if you go to them with something this complex, which is why we have a business, as a matter of fact, they're going to look at you like you have two heads, especially when you get into some lingo talking about first lien versus second lien position home equity line of credit. Most bankers, and I'm just throwing a number out there, but it's at least this high, 90+% of bankers don't even know what a first lien position home equity line of credit is. But I'll fill you in on a simple clue. Not a single bank we've ever investigated will deny us a first lien position home equity line of credit. You just got to ask the right questions structured the right way.
I love that. That's huge. That's huge because I think it's just more helpful to realize that it's not the person, it's the bank. And to not only get the questions to ask, get the formula to ask, get the exact, essentially the script and the protocol, but also know what banks are readily available. People would need to come to you and you can offer that to them, right?
Yeah, so that's another thing. I have a whole department that all we do is call and investigate banks, because when it comes to this product, understand that a home equity line of credit is an asset that sits on the bank's balance sheet. This isn't a mortgage that gets sold off to Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA, USDA. This is an asset that is of the banks. So there's less regulation when it comes to home equity lines of credit, but since it's an asset to the bank, they have different guidelines and protocols and risk that they're willing to take on versus credit unions and banks, community banks versus big box banks, et cetera. So here's a good analogy, Jeremy. You needed to borrow money, which we know you don't, but if you did need to borrow money and you asked myself and your mother, I'm going to have different terms and conditions than your mother because your mother trusts you more than I do, right? It might be vice versa, but you get the point. So same thing with banks. It is still the Wild West of the lending industry and banking industry, just like what we had in the mortgage days prior to 2008 and 2007. It was Nina loans and Ninja loans and stated loans. You didn't even have to qualify. If you fogged up a mirror, you got a loan. There were so many different programs from lender to company and bank to bank. That's the way it currently is with HELOCs. So I know banks that will do a fixed rate HELOC for 5 years at 3.25%. I know one that does 0% for 6 months. I know one that will do 100% financing on a purchase, and I know another one that will only do 80. I know one that does 80% on rentals across the entire country. They're not the same. It is vastly different, especially when you get into state laws like Texas and Alaska and Hawaii. So it is a maze, and what we do is we help folks navigate that maze. But it's far bigger than that. It's not just getting a HELOC. That's really the easy part. It's how do we bolt on these additional tools and systems to make you the most efficient, and what do we do after the fact? That's where it really gets fun. A year in, man, I've paid off 150 grand. I didn't even think that was possible. Got a cool question. What could I do with 150 grand that I'm only paying 1.99% on? I don't know. Think like a banker and use arbitrage. Let's take that money and let's lend it out, maybe to our LLC that's day trading. I mean, if you're getting 10% a month and you're only paying 1.99% APR, can you imagine what the rate of return on that capital is? It's amazing. So for some of those people that have the scarcity mindset that, yeah, I'd love to be a trader, but I don't have access to capital. Look around. It's all around you. Opportunities are massively abundant, especially when you have capital. Because I knew that when I was broke, and I know that now. When I was broke, I couldn't spot an opportunity if it smacked me in the face. But now that I have abundance, man, there's an opportunity every single week. Every corner I walk around, bam, there's an opportunity.
It starts with the understanding that it's available.
Yes.
That's you do not know that opportunities are there until, as you mentioned, you sit down and go, all right, what else can I do? It all starts from asking different questions.
Yes.
And I love that you have created this product for people and that you hold their hand and you walk them through the entire process. Tell us a quick success story. Someone that, one of your customers that stands out to you that was kind of incredible.
I always use Edmund, and I would love not to use Edmund. I mean, I could use Joe. I could use a lot of people. Edmund's got a really cool story because not only did he take what we teach and replace your mortgage, but he also took what we taught and replace your employer. So Edmund came to us. That was a cool story too. So actually, I was down in Florida at a marketing seminar, and I didn't know Edmund. I only knew his mortgage broker at the time. His name was John. And so we're having drinks and talking, and John's like, because this marketing seminar was specific to mortgages, right? He's like, so your mortgage business? I don't have a mortgage business. He's like, well, what are you doing? I was like, well, I'll be honest with you, dude. I teach the antithesis of a mortgage. Mortgage is tough. And you're a dope dealer, by the way. So anyways, I really know how to make friends. So, I'm explaining this to him, and he's like, dang, dude, that makes a lot of sense. And again, if we had to poll our audience of the average of what they do for a profession versus the other people in our audience, or our clients, I should say, the large portion of them are going to be mortgage professionals. We attract a lot of mortgage professionals because they get it, right? They understand what I'm talking about, and I tried to dumb it down on a third grade level. Not that people are stupid. It's just this is something I did for 17 years. So sometimes I get way too analytical and too granular in the details. So I'm trying to simplify it. But mortgage people, they get it. As soon as they hear it, they start putting two and two together like, oh, yeah, I'm not doing a mortgage. I'm getting a HELOC on my property. But yet they still peddle mortgages. So that's going to be the biggest portion of our client base is actually mortgage professionals. We attract a lot of them. So anyways, this mortgage professional flies back up to Delaware. Edmund is calling him and saying, hey, I need to refinance my home. And he's like, man, I got to be honest with you, which kudos to him. He could have taken the money. He's putting food on the table for his family too, right? But he was honest and just said, actually, I met a dude down in Florida, and he's got something I think is way better for you. And so Edmund was very skeptical. Actually, at the time in my business, I was the marketing guy, I was the sales guy, I was the tech guy. I was a one-man shop. So I did the call with Edmund, and Edmund was extremely skeptical. And eventually he dove in, also with a little bit of pressure from his mortgage broker. And from day one, Edmund is somebody that's like a sponge. If he says, this is what I'm going to do, he is going to extract all the information. He's going to do exactly what you told him to do. That way the pressure's on you if it doesn't work versus on him because he was told what to do. And he did, to a T. Paid his house off and was like, holy crap, this works. He's like, and he was an assistant principal at a high school and actually doing pretty well. I was surprised at how much money assistant principals or even principals in high schools up in the Northeast actually make. So he was doing pretty well, but he's like, I'm just not happy. He's like, I've got all this equity. What could I do with it? And I was like, what do you want to do? There is no one answer. Again, I go back to Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey. Like they think that their way is the only way. I would like to have options, right? So I said, what do you like to do? He's like, real estate. It's like, cool. We can teach you about real estate too. I got a buddy, Nate, Dr. Nate, that can tell you all about homes and how to acquire homes. And guess where he had the capital? In his property. So he was using his home equity line of credit to start his real estate portfolio and leverage, and we can get into the numbers of that too. With this strategy, instead of buying one home and paying cash, you can actually buy 5 homes with this strategy by constantly leveraging an arbitrage. So he expanded his real estate portfolio and said, you know what, dude, this works so well. I'm telling people about it. I just want to come on board and work with you. And I was at first like, no way, because he didn't have any mortgage experience. And I'm like, you can't really sell the antithesis of this unless you know how a mortgage works and you've been in the field. But I was shocked. Edmund became one of our number one salespeople. Now he's a business partner. So, you're talking about somebody that went from, I wouldn't say modest means, but very low 6 figures, about $100,000 a month or $100,000 a year in income to now he's a multimillionaire. And that all happened in the last 5 years.
Yep. And I know Edmund very well. That's cool that you told me that story. I was like, my boy, Edmund. Yeah. I literally sent him a voice memo this morning.
Yeah.
This morning. He was asking about another individual. Also name is Jeremy. And he's talking about the leverage thing. I fully agree that you should learn with specific aspects of your money, but to give people an actual monetary example, if you take $10,000 from your HELOC, that $10,000 can be your stock market education. Like this is all you need to really, really learn, because with that 10,000, you can come to me and buy $1 million of day trading buying power. Now you don't need to do it all at once, right? You can take 10, $100,000 accounts. You blow one up, you blow one up, you blow one up. By the third or fourth one, you finally start figuring it out. But I mean, let that leverage sink in for those who are listening. And that is the capability. That's what Edmund did. That's what Paul did. That's what Jeremy did. There's so many of success stories of people from both ways. I have Jason Smith. He's one of your biggest fans. He's a huge advocate of the first lien HELOC. Mark Sukamel, who lives in Chicago, Illinois, he's doing this. So there's so many people that are interchangeably, because it makes monetary sense to do this, right. Which leads me to a question. How does someone mess this up?
By not doing what you're told when you're told to do it. It's that simple. We've literally laid it out step by step. Click here, now do this. Click here, now do this. In the beginning, it wasn't that way. I'll be honest with you. In 2014, I condensed this into 3 webinars that were multiple hours in length per one. And so you really had to watch it in detail and take notes, because what if you had a simple question you didn't want to have to figure out in the multiple hour webinar where I actually go over that detail? Now it's completely laid out step by step of what to do. So here's who it's not for, though. Let's say you got low credit. If you've got low credit, let's say below 640 credit score, ideally 660 and above. If you don't have equity, right? Believe it or not, there are some situations in banks and credit unions that will do 100% financing, but it's so scarce and so few and far between. I don't like taking on a client that doesn't have at least 10% equity. So let's say you've got a $300,000 home and you've got $30,000 of equity. That's all you need. I can work with that. And then the biggest thing is cash flow positivity. So have you mastered your budget? Do you make more money than you spend? If that's the case, I can work with that and I can help you. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, we got to go back to basics. And now you need to be treated like a toddler. So you can go to Baby Steps with Dave Ramsey and he can treat you like a toddler and give you no options. But once you've graduated to adulthood, yeah, that's where we take over. Oh, lots of shade.
But I like how you said earlier, you're like, hey, listen, guys, this is what I did. I was on a budget and I was making good money. Mm-hmm. Team, that is the building blocks of financial success. Have a budget, make some money. And because it's easy, like it's not hard to make money. It doesn't matter how much money you make, have that budget, have some cash flow positivity, do the right thing with it. And once you can start learning, and this is your opportunity to do that, when you can start getting an idea of how to leverage this, it becomes phenomenal. You mentioned that you met Edmund at a marketing event. I know that you have an event. Sorry. Yes. I know that you have an event coming up where other people can meet other people and they can do kind of like a commingling networking event. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So we've done physical events in the past, and I don't mind doing those. I like seeing the people face to face, giving them hugs and hanging out with them and getting to know them on a more personal level. But I can only impact so many people. So for instance, the event we did in Salt Lake City, it took me 5.5 hours, and you know me, a big family guy, so I don't like to go anywhere without my family. So it's a 5.5 hour flight to Salt Lake City, and I've got 4 boys in tow and a wife and a babysitter or the nanny that went with us. So that's thousands of dollars in plane tickets. Then you've got the hotel. We were at Snowbird Lodge or resort in Snowbird, Utah. So that's multiple thousands there just to stay there for a couple days. It's expensive. Then you got the food and all that. So there's a more efficient way, and I'm always looking for a more efficient way. So I was like, you know what? This year, let's focus on virtual events, right? So we got a coach who's telling us how to do virtual events. So we're doing one starting Monday, right? So it's January 9th on Monday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. So we have our 5-step process, because what you've only heard is actually one piece of the 5 pieces that we talk about, right? The Replace Your Mortgage is only one of 5 really holistic system that you need to put in place. Because if you do all this, but you're not protected, then and you're exposed, not good. So we need to bulletproof this financial blueprint, right? So we do that. We got a debt ninja system. We got an asset acquisition method, which you would love, because we're driving people like, look, you've got access to capital. You can either do real estate or you can do day trade. You can swing a hammer or you can sit behind a desk. I know which one I would rather do. So we've got all this. So for 5 days, for 1 hour, so at 5 p.m. for 1 hour, I'm going to go over each topic and explain it in greater detail. Right?
Oh, cool.
And then after that hour, I'm going to do another hour of just question and answer on that topic. So it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So instead of charging people hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars to come to an event, this is going to be $97. So easy for anyone. I'm giving the $97 away. We don't get it. It's not like I'm trying to get thousands and thousands of people, and not because I would have to in order to make a profit on this. It's not like I'm making money on the $97. I just truly feel like if it's free, you're not going to value anything about it. You probably won't even show up. But if you actually have to put pen to paper and actually pay for something, then you'll show up. And I need you to show up in order so I can help you.
It's the most no-brainer decision of all time. So to verify, it's 2 hours, starts at 5 p.m. and you're doing both of those hours live?
Yes.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great.
So I'll cover the topic, and then I'll do another or not another topic. I'll do that topic and then Q&A on that topic. And then the next day at 5 p.m., I'll cover another topic.
So here's what I want you to do. If you're watching this, please click the link and sign up for that, because that makes obvious sense on every scale possible. Everything imaginable to me. Everyone here listening to this has $97. But more importantly than that, when I had breakfast with you that very first time, I think it was at Puckett's. That was like a $97 breakfast, and it was one of the most valuable transactions ever done in my life, because you and I have done millions of dollars in deals together since that breakfast. This is your opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to have a breakfast/dinner, but for 5 days in a row,
right, with
an incredibly intelligent. Well, is your wife going to be there?
No.
Whoever lunch is like
putting the kids to bed, hopefully. So that by the time I get home, I don't have to deal with that.
I was like, incredibly intelligent. Who am I talking about? I'm kidding. Make sure to be there, team. This is a very, very incredible opportunity. I don't think you've ever done anything like this before.
No.
And that's kind of incredibly mind-blowing that you're even offering that. So please sign up. $97. It's an absolute no-brainer. I'm going to register as well, and I hope to see a lot of you guys there.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Jeremy. Y'all take care and God bless.
You too, buddy.